All right, you guys, it is another epic review. You all know, if you're new listeners to the Sarah Fraser Show, I'm your host, Sarah Fraser. I'm obsessed with documentaries. I watched them all, and I just watched one about the villages in Florida. Oh my God, what was it called? Some Kind of Wonderful, I think. I'll tell you all about that on tomorrow's podcast. Anyway, today we are reviewing part 1 and part 2 of Tiger, the documentary on HBO, which is all about Tiger Woods. I'm obsessed with Tiger Woods, and I have to say to you before we talk about this, obviously full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the documentary, you're not going to want to watch this review. But back in the day, I was a radio DJ for years on a show called The Kane Show in DC, but it was syndicated. So if you lived in Memphis or Cincinnati or Tampa or Baltimore, we were on there, okay, a morning show. I do have to tell you, in 2009, when it came out that Tiger Woods had been cheating on his wife, having multiple affairs, it was like... I mean, honestly, a celeb gossip reporter that I was on that show, it was like a wet dream. I mean, it was like the most, and I feel shitty saying that because this documentary really does humanize, I think, the background of Tiger Woods and Elin, his wife, who you all remember. But we could not get enough of like this story. It was so crazy because Tiger Woods had this squeaky clean image in a way I think that, you know, we hadn't really seen before. And sadly for him, it all came crashing down. So I got to give you a full review of that. The big highlights of this are his kind of number one mistress, if you will, Rachel Uchitel, is on this documentary. And it's the first time she in-depth speaks out about having an affair with Tiger. Really fascinating about her background, how they met. So we'll talk about that. Also, I mean, the paparazzi was relentless. We'll talk about National Enquirer. I used to be obsessed with the National Enquirer. They really are fuck sticks, though. I mean, they're the worst of the worst. They ended up busting Tiger by collecting a used tampon in a parking lot. Yes, I'll get into all that. And then also, I think the most fascinating part of this documentary for me is truly always the psychology. I'm always amazed. All of us have trauma in our background. All of us have different childhoods and different parents. And certainly Earl Woods, who's Tiger's father, completely shaped him into the person that he is and then was, of course, with his downfall. Before we get to all that, I want to thank 2 sponsors. Guys, if you listen to or watch this show regularly, you know the best way to support my show is to join the Patreon and make a donation, patreon.com/The Sarah Fraser Show, or frequent our sponsors. Joe Picetto is amazing. He is a financial advisor who has over 15 years of experience. He's licensed, he's certified, worked with Wells Fargo for years, and now has JP2 Management. If you have $500 to invest, $5,000, Joe is your guy. Now is the time of year to start financially planning, even if you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s and you watch this or listen to this show. Go to jp2management.com, set up your free virtual consultation right now and take control of your financial future. What I love about Joe is he has lots of free tips to get you saving money, to get you maximizing your 401k. Also, if you're in the DC, Virginia, or Maryland region and you're looking for a great realtor, have we got the team for you. Chris K and Associates and our girl Penny Gerber are amazing. You know, the housing market is on fire. So is the condo market. Do you know what your home is worth? Well, you should find out because 2021 is officially and finally here. And with a new year, it means a continued red hot market. Penny Gerber is from one of DC's top brokerage firms, Long & Foster. She has joined Chris K and Chris K Associates. Together, they are ready to assist you with your real estate needs. Do you know how much your home is worth? Well, contact Penny today to get an estimate on your home. You can call or text her at 240-413-6102. That's right. Call or text Penny right now, 240-413-6102, or email her at pennyg@lnf.com. That's pennyg@lnf.com. Ask to set an appointment for a complimentary consultation to discuss the sale of your home today. Love them. Okay, Tiger Woods doc. First of all, HBO is killing it. I'm obsessed with HBO. They have the most amazing docs. They just did The Vow. They have incredible shows. Of course, they had The Undoing with our girl Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant. Their programming is fire. So that's where you can exclusively find it because people have already hit me up and they go, where do you watch it? Netflix. It's not on Netflix. It's only on HBO. So this 2-part series, each episode is 90 minutes. What is so striking about this is the first episode talks about Earl Woods and how Earl, who is Tiger's dad, was a Green Beret in Vietnam. This dude would go into bunkers and basically detonize, like he would take bombs out. I mean, the dude was fucking hardcore. So he and his wife Tito raised Tiger basically to be this emotionless machine who from the time he was 2 years old started golfing and then making TV appearances. Okay, we see this over and over, right? And I'm always fascinated because one part of me wants to be this parent, and then also the other part of me is like, obviously the kids are fucked up. From Kris Jenner, Joe Jackson, obviously with Michael Jackson and his siblings, Earl Woods, so many parents we see do this to their kids. But Earl, like, he had a vision for Tiger and he sees it through the end. So the first part of this whole documentary really talks about how Earl broke into an industry, golf, with Tiger that was completely white. They talk about the racism. They talk about a lot of clubs. I didn't even know this, although I should not be surprised. But the Masters, the one that he won, didn't even allow Black people in until like late 90s. Insane. So you see all these racial barriers that Tiger breaks down, which is awesome. But you also see a kid being raised to have zero emotion. Because, I mean, Earl Woods is like badass, Green Beret, right? So this works for a long time. Tiger's winning huge, events for golf. He's growing up with his mom. And the thing that I think is missing in this is they don't build a profile with his mom, Tito, which I think is really sad because apparently she was just as much of a competitor as Earl was, but you really wouldn't know that. You don't even get a sense of what kind of mom she was. So I felt like that was a failing of this. Earl, they guide him and Tita like talks shit about other players. There's like Phil Mickelson out there and he's kind of chubby and she calls him, Fat Mickelson, and it's like, oh, I kind of like her. She talks shit. So they mold him and all is going well. He has this great image. Everybody's falling in love with him. He wins the Masters. His father's so proud of him. But so that's like all the buildup of the first part. Really, the best part is the second part of this, in my opinion. So you get to the second part because at the end, they sort of tease you with Rachel Uchitel, the mistress that the last text message that he texted her before he crashed into the tree in his own driveway was basically, you were the only one that I ever loved. And what we find out is Elin, Tiger's wife, poor Elin. I mean, I think they again, you don't find out a lot about her, although in this documentary, what's pretty cool is they do interview unique people. Like Rachel Uchitel has never really spoken out before. And the reason she hasn't is she alludes to the fact that she got a massive settlement and kind of a non-disclosure agreement, if you will, that she couldn't talk too much about it. You do hear from Elin's like a friend, a very close friend. You hear from a high school girlfriend of Tiger Woods who has never spoken out before, a neighbor who, knew them for years. So I think you do get a lot of insight about him. Now, Tiger refused to participate. So a lot of people have compared this documentary to like The Last Dance. Very different than the Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan, had a hand in that. So part 2 to me is the juiciest. You get to, of course, his downfall, right? His demise. And I'm always like, to me, I just feel like, are we still at the point in society where we really believe that people are flawless? Because it talks about how shocking it was that the National Enquirer, who I used to love, I used to be obsessed with, because they broke every story. Patrick Swayze's cancer. They broke that like Michael Jackson was addicted to, painkillers and was near death. The John Kerry one, when he had a love child, they fucking got pictures of him in a hotel room with Rael Hunter and their love child. But they are the sleaziest. They are the sleaziest. And to think at one point I wanted to work for them. I mean, that's like so shitty. They got tips that Tiger Woods was having sex with a Perkins waitress at this like dumpy restaurant in Florida. They follow them. They put a tail on them. They go to a parking lot. They have sex. And the woman that he has sex with basically pulls out her tampon, throws it in the parking lot, and they collect it. They use that as proof. So they blackmail him, which I think we found out they do, right? With like Jeff Bezos and that whole like thing with, we've never seen Jeff Bezos' nude photos, although I'm dying to see his dick. So they basically bribe Tiger and they say, okay, our sister magazine, Men's Health, who knew the Enquirer owned them? You're going to be on the cover of Men's Health. So he agrees to do it. And for a couple years, that keeps everything at bay. Now, this is back like 2006, 2007. So he was having affairs on Elin for a long, long, long time. But then he goes to Vegas. He's partying with Michael Jordan. He's partying with Charles Barkley. And it's just becoming sloppier and sloppier, of course, right? He's in clubs. He's like making out with people. So Rachel Uchitel comes into the picture because she's basically like an event coordinator for a high-end town nightclub, in Vegas. And her whole thing is A-list celebrities getting them everything they want. Coke, sex, hookers. Well, he decides he wants her. So he like texts her. He's like, I want to hook up with you. I don't want these other women. Anyway, that goes back and forth. Then they finally end up having sex. They carry on this long-term affair. They get busted because he flies her to Australia where he's playing a tournament, right? And the National Enquirer gets a tip. They send a reporter who stays in the same hotel room. Well, it stays in the same hotel, like right next door to Rachel Uchitel. So they try to squash this story, Rachel Uchitel and Tiger Woods, and it doesn't really work. And then at this point, the Enquirer goes, fuck it, we're going to air it. No one cared. They air it, nobody cares. But then what ends up happening is Elin gets a hold of Tiger's phone, texts Rachel Uchitel as Tiger. And then Rachel calls and Elin picks up the phone and basically says, I knew it was you all along. Can you imagine? Poor Elin. I mean, Elin, I feel for Elin. She really is like, it's really sad. So everything starts unraveling. I didn't even realize in 2017 is when he was arrested for his DUI, where he had like 5 different drugs, Ambien, Oxycontin. He gets addicted to painkillers and everything from his knee injury. So Rachel Uchitel finally speaks out and basically says like she's been called a homewrecker and a whore. And it is terrible. I mean, you watch the paparazzi scenes and they're like, have you thought about getting an STD test? It's like, oh shit, these people are. And to think like, but yet the worst part is I love this. I mean, are you watching and listening to this? We're all addicted to the dirt, isn't it? And some of the comments that they were making to her, I was just like, oh my God, this is so funny. But I know it's her life. And then poor Elin is out with her kids and they're like, Elin, do you think you should get an STD test? She's with her kids. It's awful. All right. But yet I'm addicted. What's fascinating about Rachel Uchitel, though, what a life. She was engaged to a guy who was killed in 9/11. He was in one of the towers. He was a finance guy. Also, when she was working at Town Nightclub in Vegas, she was making close to $1 million a year booking guests. Did you know you could make that in the nightclub world? Booking A-list guests. And she was almost on this past season of Real Housewives of New York, but Leah Sweeney beat her out. Put Andy Cohen, put Rachel Uchitel on. She's so good. I think it would be amazing. Anyway, the hardest part for me, they discuss a lot of racism. The hardest part for me is the Masters when Tiger returns, I think 2016, 2017, and this asshole that runs the Masters basically talks about, we're not going to allow this shame in our, at the Masters and all this stuff. And it's like, fuck you, dude. First of all, is your closet clean? And second of all, you're a racist piece of shit. You never even let anybody of color in here until like 5 years ago, and you're condemning him? That part really pissed me off. Jeff Bezos' girlfriend is in it too. Lauren Sanchez. She does an interview with one of the mistresses. It's so good. But you know what's and of course we see essentially Tiger does all these interviews, apologizing. And what's fascinating to me is he really always talks about how it's impacted like his game before his marriage or his kids. And it's like, wow, all he knows is being completely programmed that his father did. He has no emotions. And I'm curious if people know him now, if he's become more sensitive, because they try to allude to the fact he's become a softer competitor, but it certainly seems like he there's really an emotional switch missing there, because he really, like, he'll always bring up his family or his marriage or anything like second or third. So the biggest takeaway about this, I think, is obviously balance, right? And dealing with trauma that he never dealt with, which is really how, he got to a point where all those demons caught up to him 100%. But I was talking to Dan and there's some very emotional moments. I loved, when he came out and apologized and he embraced his mom, and it was just really sad. It was, a sad moment because they'd worked so hard to craft this image. But I think what's fascinating about Tiger, and I'm curious, I'd love for you guys to leave a comment below, because I was talking to my husband about this, is it seems like with him, have all these mistresses faded for you, except for when this documentary came up? Because he's now back, right? He's playing. He just went viral with a picture. Here are some of his mistresses. He just went viral with a picture of his son playing golf with him. And my husband was saying, winning basically cures all. It solves all, because now he's back. Do people really mention it? Doesn't seem like it. It seems like he's recovered his image, whereas people like, I'm thinking Lance Armstrong comes to mind, where Lance, is just so disgraced, right? And maybe it's because Lance cheated in the game and Tiger, rightfully has won the games, but all his shortcomings have been outside of it. Totally worth watching. I would love for you to leave a comment. Did you like this 2-part documentary? And 2, for you, have all of his shortcomings faded? Really? Because I think that's the biggest thing, is he's gone on. He's now playing his best golf. He's recovered from injuries. He's recovered from that 2007. I mean, the guy was like blitzed. DUI. And his image seems to be restored. Love for you to leave a comment in the YouTube section. My YouTube channel is The Sarah Fraser Show. Be sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications. Love you guys. Hope you loved this documentary. Bye, everybody!